Ladies and gents, welcome to another ASMR reading. I have a story for SCP-049 on my phone, and I'm going to read it for you, so I hope you'll enjoy it. Item SCP-049. Object Class Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-049 is contained within a standard humanoid containment cell in Research Sector 02 at Site 19. SCP-049 must be sedated before any attempts to transport it. During transport, SCP-049 must be secured within a Class 3 humanoid restriction harness, including a locking collar and extension restraints. Ooh, this is interesting. And monitored by no fewer than 2 armed guards. While SCP-049 is generally cooperative with most Foundation personnel, outbursts or sudden changes in behavior are to be met with elevated force. Under no circumstances should any personnel come into direct contact with SCP-049 during these outbursts. In the event that SCP-049 becomes aggressive, the application of lavender has been shown to produce a calming effect on the entity. Once calmed, SCP-049 generally becomes compliant and will return to containment with little resistance. In order to facilitate the ongoing containment of SCP-049, the entity is to be provided with the corpse of a recently deceased animal, typically a large bovine or other large mammal, once every 2 weeks for study. Corpses that become instances of SCP-049-2 are to be removed from SCP-049's containment cell and incinerated. SCP-049 is no longer permitted to interact with human subjects, and requests for human subjects are to be denied. Temporary Containment Procedure Update. See Addendum 049.3 per Containment Committee Order 049-S19-17-1. SCP-049 is no longer permitted to interact directly with any members of Foundation staff, nor is it to be provided with any additional corpses to be used in its surgeries. This order shall persist indefinitely until such time a consensus regarding the ongoing containment of SCP-049 can be reached. SCP-049 is a humanoid entity, roughly 19 meters in height, which bears the resemblance of a medieval plague doctor. While SCP-049 appears to be wearing the thick robes and the ceramic mask indicative of that profession, the garments instead seem to have grown out of SCP-049's body over time, and are now nearly indistinguishable from whatever form is beneath them. X-rays indicate that despite this, SCP-049 does have a humanoid skeletal structure beneath its outer layer. SCP-049 is capable of speech in a variety of languages, though tends to prefer English or medieval French. While SCP-049 is generally cordial and cooperative with Foundation staff, it can become especially irritated or at times outright aggressive if it feels it is in the presence of what it calls the pestilence. Although the exact nature of this this pestilence is currently unknown to Foundation researchers, it does seem to be an issue of immense concern to SCP-049. SCP-049 will become hostile, with individuals that it sees as being affected by the pestilence often having to be restrained should it encounter such. If left unchecked, SCP-049 will generally attempt to kill any such individual. SCP-049 is capable of causing all biological functions of an organism to cease through direct skin contact. How this occurs is currently unknown. The autopsies of SCP-049's victims have invariably been inconclusive. SCP-049 has expressed frustration or remorse after these killings, indicating that they have done little to kill the pestilence, though will usually seek to then perform a crude surgery on the corpse, using the implements contained within a black doctor's bag it carries on its person at all times. While these surgeries are not always successful, they often result in the creation of instances of SCP-0492. SCP-0492 are reanimated corpses that have been operated on by SCP-049. These instances do not seem to retain any of their prior memories or mental functions, having only basic motor skills and response mechanisms, while these instances are generally inactive, moving very little and in a generally ambulatory fashion. They can become extremely aggressive if provoked, or if directed to by SCP-049. SCP-0492 instances express active biological functions, though these are vastly different from currently understood human physiology. Despite these alterations, SCP-049 often remarks that the subjects have been cured. Interesting. Very little. Addendum 0491 Discovery. SCP-049 was discovered during the investigation of a series of unknown disappearances in the town of Montauban in southern France during a raid on a local home. Investigators found several instances of SCP-0492 as well as SCP-049. While law enforcement personnel engaged the hostile 0492 instances, SCP-049 was noted as watching the engagement and taking notes in its journal. After all of the 0492 instances were dispatched, SCP-049 willingly entered Foundation custody. The following interview was conducted by Dr. Raymond Hannum during the initial investigation. Though there is a sound file, it may be risky for me to access it, and thus I will read the transcript for you. Oh, I see. The interviewer is Dr. Raymond Ham, Site 85. The interviewee is SCP-049. For the sake of speed, I will refer to the doctor as the doctor and SCP-049 as 49. 49 begins the log in French. So, then, how should we begin an introduction? Doctor says, "Is that French? Can we get a translator?" 049 replies, wanders about, and here I worried I had been abducted by common street thugs. This place, then, this is your laboratory. I had wondered, as clean as it is, with such little trace of the pestilence here. The doctor replies, the pestilence? What do you mean? 049 says, the scourge, the great dying. Come now, you know what is it? They call it no matter the pestilence, yes. It abounds outside these walls, you know. So many have succumbed, and many more will continue to, until such time as a perfect cure can be developed. He leans back in his chair. Fortunately, I am very close. It is my duty in life to rid the world of it, you see, the cure to end all cures. The doctor says, when you say the great dying, are you talking about the bubonic plague? 049 replies, I don't know what that is. The doctor says, I see, all right. Well, the entities our agents encountered at that house, they were dead when you encountered them, yes, and you reanimated them. 049 replies, in a manner of speaking, yes. You see, things are too simply, Doctor. You see things too simply, Doctor. Expand your horizons. Life and death, sickness and health, these are amateur terms for amateur physicians. There is only one ailment that exists in the world of men, and that is the pestilence, and nothing else. Make no mistake, they were very ill, all of them. Dr. Ham says, you believe you cured those people? SCP-049 says, indeed, my cure is most effective. The doctor says the things we recovered were not human. 049 pauses and glares at Dr. Ham. Well, yes, it is not a perfect cure, but that will come with time and further experimentation. I've spent a lifetime developing my methods, Dr. Ham, and will spend a lifetime more if necessary. Now we have wasted too much time. There is work to do. I will require a laboratory of my own, one where I can continue my research unimpeded, and assistance, of course, though I can provide those on my own in time. The doctor says, I don't think our organization would be willing to, and 049 cuts him off. Nonsense, we are all men of science. Fetch your coat and show me my quarters, Doctor. Our work begins now. The interviewer notes that while SCP-049 is capable of communicating in a very human way, there is a strange sense of unease that one experiences when in his presence. Make no mistake, there is something very uncanny about this entity indeed. Additionally, we've confiscated the pointed stick that SCP-049 keeps waving about. Part of this was due to standard confiscation protocols for the possession of anomalies, and part because 049 really is a menace swinging it around like he does. The entity was displeased at first, but after we made concessions in providing it with test subjects, which are admittedly more for the benefit of our own research, it warmed up to the idea. Addendum 0492. Observation log. While in containment at Site 19, SCP-049 has spent a considerable amount of time studying and performing surgery on various mammalian corpses. It has been provided. SCP-049 will routinely spend several days performing surgery, and then, regardless of whether or not the corpse becomes an instance of SCP-0492, spending several more days documenting its findings in a thick leather journal stored within its doctor's bag. SCP-049 will often seek to share its findings with members of Foundation staff. The following is a log of several occasions which SCP-049 was observed operating on a mammalian corpse. Subject 049, preface. A test subject D85123 was introduced into SCP-049's containment cell. The entity expressed sincere gratitude toward all members of the containment and research staff. 049 began by asking D85123 several standard medical questions as it began removing tools from its bag. Shortly after finishing its preparations, 049 quickly closed the distance between the two, killing the subject with a touch to its throat. Afterward, SCP-049 made a considerable number of alterations to the basic structure of the subject's corpse, often introducing fluids from within its bag into the subject by way of a hand-powered pump and copper tubing. The resulting 0492 instance became animated, flailing and grasping at the walls of the chamber, with a number of manufactured limbs while moaning out of an oblong orifice now present in its sternum. During this time, 049 was observed taking notes of the instance in its journal and remarking to the watching research staff about the efficacy of its cure. Security personnel entered the chamber to move SCP-049 back to containment and were attacked by the instance. The security team dispatched the 0492 instance, and 049 returned to containment with no resistance, stating that it was pleased with the results. Observation log number 2. 049 was provided the corpse of a recently deceased goat. 049 expressed gratitude at their provision. 049 operated on the goat corpse for several days, eventually resulting in an instance of 0492. 049 expressed pleasure in this outcome, though admitted the disease was still in its nascent stage. My veterinarian practice is rudimentary, but the patient responded well to the procedure. Log number 3. Was provided the corpse of a recently deceased orangutan. 049 expressed noted gratitude at the provision due to the similarities between the orangutan and the common human physiology. 049 spent several days operating on the orangutan, reanimating it several times. However, 049 appeared to be discontent with the results it experienced, returning to the creature 3 times after its initial reanimation for additional work. After it was unable to reanimate the corpse a 5th time, 049 turned the corpse over to Foundation staff for incineration, stating, "I have learned so much from this, though I fear my early optimism was misplaced. I hadn't yet come across such a stumbling block on my road to the cure. More subjects like this would do a great deal in advancing my research." 049 was provided in, observation log 7 now. I guess the rest are expunged or redacted. In observation log 7, 049 was provided the corpse of a recently deceased bovine. 049 expressed mild annoyance at the provision, though it accepted it nonetheless. 049 spent several days operating on the bovine corpse, breaking only to dine on a requested dinner of thin crackers, salted pork, and hard cheese. Beginning first by embalming the corpse, 049 was observed producing a number of long syringes from its bag, each containing a different dark, viscous liquid. 049 described these fluids as essences of the humors, and elaborated by saying, "The pestilence may bring about a systemic imbalance. In such a case, before true healing can begin, one must find the humors in balance, or the body will reject the cure." Over the next few days, SCP-049 spent a considerable amount of time adjusting the organs of the bovine corpse corpse with a number of large metal instruments. After 8 days, 049 produced a lightning rod, which Dr. Ham exchanged for an electric cattle prod attached to an extension cord, and struck the corpse in several locations. This action seemingly had the effect of reanimating the bovine, which once again became ambulatory. Despite the inversion of the head and reorientation of its limbs. Here's a follow-up interview. Once again, I will not be providing the sound file, but I will read you the transcript. Dr. Ham takes charge of this interview as before. So, let's begin. The doctor starts. He says, "We've watched you work for several weeks now, and honestly, I'm not sure I understand what you're doing. Can you describe your process in detail?" 049 replies, "Oh goodness, no. The process is most intensive, as I said to your assistant. The best instruction you will find about my methods are here in my journals, as I've kept exhaustive records of my work there." "I see. My concern, Doctor, is that we still don't understand what you're seeking to cure, or how it manifests, or how turning these creatures into quasi-living mindless drones helps in that effort." 049 says, "You do not understand the pestilence, even after all this time. Doctor, it is an unspeakable horror, one that has shown its true face many times before and will again. I find myself blessed with wisdom and good senses needed to root out and destroy it. But many, like yourself, cannot. It is a cruel judgment, I fear, to be at the mercy of a disease that you cannot fully comprehend." The doctor says, "That still does not answer my question. How is your cure? Any kind of cure at all?" 049 suddenly becomes agitated and says, "It is a cure. You may laugh at my efforts if you please, but do not besmirch the good name of scientific progress that has developed this great mercy. What you so short-sightedly see here is a life better than any this creature could have hoped for, stricken as it was with pestilence. The creature is now clean, unable to spread pestilence, and free from the terror it would have experienced otherwise." The doctor says, "This is hardly a creature at all, Doctor. It's not even." 049 replies in a very agitated manner, "Do not jape with me, sir. You and your colleagues are like so many others, unable to look past minor setbacks and see the salvation taking place before your very eyes. Do you wait to remove rotten timbers until the whole collapses on top of you? No, you find them and pull them out and replace them with those untouched by rot. And most of all, you do not simply mock the structure because it now looks different to you. It is strong. It is free of disease." Doctor replies, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to agitate you. I'm just trying to understand." 049 says, after taking a deep breath, "Yes, well, do mind your words in future, Doctor. I'm a professional, but even professionals may feel the bite of pride in dealing with criticism of their masterpiece. I will forgive this as an act of good faith between colleagues." Dr. Ham says, "Is there anything else I can help you with?" 049 pauses, looks away, and says, "No, that will be all. Another test subject on the usual schedule. You know my preference of subjects with more human anatomies." The attending researcher notes that 049 does seem to genuinely want to help other humans, though it has not yet been able to provide a concrete example of what exactly it is trying to save us all from. I have watched it now over several weeks, and while the outcomes do not seem to ever change, 049 continues to claim that it is growing closer to its perfect cure. I think the entity may be more aware of the reality of these outcomes than it would like us to think. Now, on the 16th of April 2017, there was an incident. Starting shortly after 049's initial containment, Dr. Ham conducted a number of interviews with the subject regarding its anomalous properties, and over time began to note its displeasure with its subjects and the SCP-0492 instances. This continued for several months, during which 049 never exhibited any aggressive behavior. On April 16th, 2017, as Dr. Ham was entering 049's test chamber to conduct another routine interview, the entity began to grow anxious and asked Dr. Ham if he was not feeling well. Following protocol, Dr. Ham reminded 049 that the interview was required, after which the entity became hostile and attacked Dr. Ham, killing him. Due to a lapse in security protocol and because Dr. Ham did not activate the in-chamber emergency system, his corpse was not discovered until 3 hours later, by which point SCP-049 had converted it into an instance of 0492. In the aftermath of the incident, 049 was interviewed by Dr. Theron Sherman. Dr. Sherman says, "I need you to explain yourself," and no response was forthcoming. Dr. Sherman says, 049, "You are being directed to explain your actions, and I'll remind you that a failure to cooperate will result in further restrictions during your containment." 049 pauses and says, "My actions do not need to be explained." Dr. Sherman says, "You killed Raymond Ham and then butchered him until he..." 049 interrupts him angrily. "No, not dead. No, not dead. He is cured." Dr. Sherman says, Cured? Cured of what?" 049 says, "The pestilence, sir. I thought you at least would realize what luck it is I detected it before." Dr. Sherman interrupts him. "What pestilence? You keep speaking of this pestilence, but you have not once been able to properly identify this disease. What could you have possibly seen in him today that you had not seen so many times before, that it would be worth his life?" The pestilence presents and progresses in unforeseeable fashions and has a queer way of creeping into the unprepared, and call it what you want, doctor. It was a mercy I did to him. He is cured." Dr. Sherman says, "He is a vegetable." 049 pauses. I would not expect you to understand. You and your ilk have proven time and time again to not be men of science, but men of emotion. You cannot appreciate the horrors I've seen, those many millions who succumbed to the pestilence and have been changed, who... Your cure, says Dr. Sherman, cost Ray his life. 049 says, "No, good sir, I have saved it. You would allow this world to slip back into the despair of disease and death, ignoring that I have created a miracle." And Dr. Sherman talks over him and says, "What disease? What pestilence? He was a healthy man. He was a good doctor." SCP-049 says, "And offering it freely to the afflicted. You are not worth this argument, sir. You are short-sighted and foolish. Dr. Ham was sick and I cured him. I'm the only one who can do this. My work must continue. There is so much still to learn, so much to..." Dr. Sherman replies, "I have had enough of this. Consider your allowances revoked. Welcome to containment 049. And away from the mic he says, "We're done here." 049 says, "Do and others cannot be saved. Even you, though you do not deserve it, might be saved. I can save them all. I can cast down this plague once and for all. I can do this. Only me. I... His breathing grows labored. "I saved him. I saved him, Dr. Ham. I cured him. He was sick. I know he was sick. I know he was. And you are all sick. But I can save you. I can save all of you. Because I am the cure." Addendum to the post-incident report interview. The following interview is an excerpt from the 16th of April. The interview was conducted by Dr. Elijah Itkin and took place 3 weeks after the start of the initial investigation. Atkins says, SCP-049, we are conducting this interview to close out our investigation of your actions taken on April 16th that resulted in the death of a staff member. Do you have any comments to make? 049 says, only that I look forward to the day when you will allow me to resume my work. I've spent the last few weeks compiling my notes and constructing a new theory for how the pestilence was able to infect someone in such an insidious manner that I nearly couldn't detect it. Dr. Itkin says, have you experienced any remorse for your actions, for the death of Dr. Ham? 049 waves his hands and says, yes. Well, the death of a colleague is always regrettable, but in the face of the pestilence we must be swift, Doctor, and act without hesitation. Dr. Itkin says, Dr. Sherman noted in his report that you seemed to be mournful during your initial interview. 049 says, mourn? Perhaps. I had not thought that. It is lamentable that a fellow doctor became infected, but the work continues. Regrettable as it was. Dr. Ham's death provided important insight. Living human subjects the only way to proceed forward. I'm decided. My cure is of little use on dead flesh, and I've gleaned all I can from your generous supply of corpses. My desire is to return toward tending those still living who suffer from the disease. Dr. Itkin says, I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed. 049, he laughs and says, oh, Doctor, I wouldn't be so sure. In the footnotes of the interview, it is noted that the robes and gloves on SCP-049 are identical to a thick hide built up over the skin, while his mask is composed of a kind of chitin growing out of the bones of the face. The entity claims to have originated in 15th century France, though admits that it is particularly well travelled. The space within his bag is anomalously large, as he has pulled objects larger than the bag itself from within it in order to operate on deceased subjects. 049 has stated its desire to work on human subjects several times between this occasion and the earlier provision of an orangutan, noting its discontentedness when they would not be provided. 049 has expressed that it does not require sustenance, but enjoys it and feels that food helps to put it in the right mind to operate. 049 added into the statement by saying, this is of course elementary knowledge for the practical physician. I would have thought you would have learned this during your education. 049's journals, notably, are not written in any known language, and attempts by linguists and codebreakers to decipher them have thus far been unsuccessful. That brings us to the end of this incredible tale. So if you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And do leave a comment if there is any other SCP story that you would like us to read. Tips are, of course, always welcome.